let me go grab that.
Oh, coffee. Gotta have coffee for coffee chat.
Huh?
Gotta have coffee for coffee chat.
Exactly.
Hopefully next week we'll have our new machine.
Good morning and welcome to Coffee Chat with David and Kylie Knight.
Hey everybody, welcome. It is Friday, April the 3rd, 2020.
I'm sorry, what is it?
April, can you not hear me?
It's cute. You had such a strong voice yesterday.
I know. And then I said, I have to go outside. It was so beautiful. And I knew we were going to have some rain coming in to prevent us going outside. I'm like, let's go for a walk before the rain comes in.
Yeah.
And then the pollen hit me and
Pollen
boom.
yeah, pollen is
There
hitting
goes the
hard.
voice.
I think it
Yeah.
got me the other day. It was
think
pretty
so.
bad. It kind of knocked me out for a little while, but
Yeah.
oh well, we're still here.
We are still here. It's a good thing it's guest week continues.
It is a good thing that it's guest week.
So I don't have to do much talking. I can just sit, listen, and enjoy some good coffee.
And they've been great conversations.
I've loved this week.
Oh my goodness. If we could do this every week, I think it would be fantastic.
I think we'll take a break.
Speaking
for
of which,
next week.
no, yeah, we're gonna take it.
Yeah,
we are
for
gonna take
Holy Week.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah, we'll take a break for Holy Week.
All right, I like that. Yeah, but it'll be good. And we've got a ton of projects we got to work on. So
Exactly.
hey, as you guys are coming on, be sure to drop us a little note. Be sure to use the hashtags Hello Nights and Cup of Awesome. Let us know you're out there. We'd love to know where you're watching from and what you're drinking this morning.
Yeah. What are we drinking?
We are drinking the Starbucks Blonde Espresso.
Back to that.
Back to that.
Because you did have a couple of days ago, we were gifted a small packet of ground coffee. I don't remember what it was now.
It was from Blue Mountain College in Mississippi.
Okay.
And they make their own coffee, and so they have several blends.
And we rarely get to use ground coffee.
Right. But
right now we can.
We have to. And then David Hyra just said, my oh my, I need to send you some coffee from our valley. Yes, you do.
Please.
We are always open to submissions. We're happy to try the coffees that you guys have.
David Hyra.
That's right. Good to see you, my friend.
You're doing well.
It's going to be a full day of Davids. I like that.
David.
And we got Sam Powers watching in the background there. I see you lurking over there. Let's see.
Peeking out.
Hyra says, Cafe Cristina, the first and only fully organic, really organic coffee farm in Costa Rica.
Yes, please.
Send it. We'll take it.
Yeah.
We will review it. As if that means anything. And hey, if you're joining us, be sure to like and share. Tell other people about this, and have fun with us, because we've got an interview with us today that we're excited about.
Yeah.
Somebody who we've known for a really, really long time. We're not gonna talk about how long, but we're excited about it, and he's a great conversationalist. He does love to talk, so
So I'll be able to sit back and.
I love how we can kind of kind of the background is he's on our Zoom window in the background, and we're getting to watch his face as we talk about him.
And he's muted, so he can't respond. It's great.
And he's such a classy guy that he won't even respond when he gets on. He'll be so full of grace and love. Sam Powers says, hashtag Hello Nights. Thank you, Sam. Good to see you.
Thanks for actually saying hi.
Well, so there's not a lot to talk about from yesterday. Again, this whole coronavirus thing's keeping everybody in.
Another day inside.
It's another day inside, except for when you go outside and get the pollen.
Right.
That's the way you roll.
We took 3.25 miles
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah, it was a nice little walk.
Yeah, only got a little sprinkled on with the rain.
Yeah, I was afraid it was going to be
dodged it.
worse, but it wasn't too bad. So, and I see Nikki in the background there. Good to see you, Nikki.
Hi, Nikki.
Who said she wasn't going to join today, so that's impressive.
Oh. She's stopping in quick.
No, she's a sweetheart. Okay, so well, shall we jump into it?
Let's just start.
Okay,
we got
let's
plenty
just
to talk about.
We
so
do. All right, so David Wahlstedt is a dynamic teacher and communicator. He is known for his creative use of story, scripture, and interaction to communicate the life-changing message of Jesus. He received his theological training at Reformed Theological Seminary and earned a master's degree in ministry, entrepreneurship, and innovation from Tabor College, which was a long process. We know.
Yes.
We helped him with some of that. When not pastoring the Table Dallas, which is our local church, you can find him working in Uganda with his nonprofit Uganda Shoe Trees, which is a fantastic organization, and I know he's going to talk a ton about that today. Caffeinating in his local coffee house. He is actually the reason that we even care about good coffee.
It's all his fault.
It is all his fault.
And we thank him for it.
We do thank him for it. He loves reading a good book or being out on the golf course lowering his handicap. He lives in Carrollton, Texas with his wife, Christine, and they have 4 children, Travis, Courtney, Kaylin, and Karis, who are all amazing.
They are.
So everybody, please welcome our good friend, and now yours, David Wahlstedt.
Woo,
Let's
woo,
see, did I get that right? Are you still muted? Oh, and talk. Can you talk? Or did I mute you? Oh, nope, I'm muted. Hang on. That was my fault.
Again.
I try every time.
There we go.
There you
There
go.
it is.
Hey.
Hey.
Everyone, welcome.
Thanks for joining us today.
Good.
Had to be here day 19 of quarantine.
Is that what it is? I've lost
For me-
count.
From Seattle, so we pretty much stayed in for 2 weeks, and let's see, Sunday would have been 2 weeks, so about 19 days.
Wow.
So we're about ready to, I don't know, do something.
Well, that's right, because I remember you were in Seattle for your advance, right? Isn't that what you call it? And you were going to come home, but then you were turning around and going right out to Uganda.
Right.
Yes,
you were meant to.
Yeah, so we were, I was there until, let's see, Monday, that would have been Monday, March the 17th, and then we were Monday the 16th, and we were turning around and headed to Uganda on March the 18th. And we would have been returning from Uganda today. Believe it or not, we have been returning today
Oh, wow.
for our Palm Sunday gatherings and obviously everything we're doing at Holy Week at the table. So,
Right.
yeah, it's been a kind of crazy couple of 3 weeks, hasn't it?
It has.
It has.
Everything changed. Everything got shut down, and you sadly weren't able to go.
That's right, yes. And had to cancel our team trip. And, well, we'll talk about that in a little bit with what's happening in schools. But first, hey, you talked about coffee.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
what are you drinking?
I'm drinking today. So this is special espresso from Uganda. I don't know if you can see it in my window there. It's handcrafted coffee from Uganda, and proceeds benefit a couple of gorilla sanctuaries.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
The big things in Uganda that's hurting right now is tourism. People go there to trek into the Sudan and sometimes over into the Congo to follow the big gorillas. So we're drinking some really good coffee and supporting another cause. So, and I'm drinking it in a wonderful mug that's made up of coffee husks.
No kidding.
Really?
Byproduct of coffee husks.
Oh,
and
cool.
Since I'm now a gentleman farmer in Uganda, we've just harvested about 35 kilos of coffee from the field office there. I can't wait to get that roasted up and brought back to the state so you guys can have some of that.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
hopefully sometime in this next year.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you joining us today. We know you're very busy. In fact, I want to talk about that first, because one of the things that I've seen a lot of memes from seminary students, especially about one thing that's not taught in seminary is how to lead a church through a crisis like this. This is unheard of.
It is.
So what
I don't think it's anything they could have prepared for.
No. But I am curious. So what? I guess 2 questions. One, what are you doing to kind of pivot, and what in your training has helped prepare you to do that sort of pivot?
Well, what in my training? I suspect probably the biggest part of my training is the recent master's program in entrepreneurship and innovation in the church. But as you guys know, I will tell us, we go back over 15 years, maybe about 15 years, I think. And we've established kind of a pattern of disruptive innovation in our church. I mean, it's like we've gone through many permutations and different things. And so many of our people are used to change that, to be honest with you, the shift to digital online gatherings may have been smoother for our congregation than for many others, just because we're high tech already and people are used to disruption and change and new things. And so this was just the next new thing that came along. Although I have spent a lot of time this week on Zoom with people in Uganda, people in Greece and other places around the world that are like really scrambling, going, how do I do this? And so, yeah, there is a huge amount of change happening. And yet I don't know that seminary prepares you for change per se. But I think that this disruptive innovation that we've had as a part of our lives at the table really has made it about as seamless as possible, considering the pandemic and what it's doing in our nation and around the world.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Uganda. You mentioned at the top you're wearing your Uganda Shoe Trees shirt, yes?
Yes.
And I'm representing with the hat. So tell us, how did you get started working in Uganda? What was that process like for you?
Well, it started back in 2002. I was pastoring at a church in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and that particular church had been sponsoring a medical clinic, or building a medical clinic, along with a church plant just on the outskirts of the main city of Kampala. And they had been, for a number of years, I would say something like 6 or 7 years, had been working, but no one from the U.S. had gone to visit and see what was going on. And there was another elder in the church and myself who the other elders and leaders of the church thought, man, they are just crazy enough to do something like this. And they literally sent us, because we were the only two that they thought might be willing to go. And quite honestly, almost 18 years ago, traveling in Uganda is a lot different than it is today. And so it was a little bit scary. We didn't know what we were getting into, but we went to visit that medical clinic and see what was happening there and the church that was being founded there. And that's how we got involved in it. That's back in 2002.
Wow.
Because you were just crazy enough to go.
Yeah, they didn't think anybody else could do the food. We love to eat strange foods, they thought. So they thought, hey, that won't be any problem for you.
And they were right.
They were right. And you kind of alluded to this a moment ago, but how are the Ugandans dealing with this? Like, where are they with everything?
Wow, I mean, a lot has changed, obviously. Since that time in 2002, at first I got involved in an individual child sponsorship program. You guys have talked about it on your show before, about the daughter that you sponsor there. We had over 400 kids that have gone through the individual child sponsorship project, and a number of them, I don't know how many now, we're well into the mid 100s who have graduated from university, and it's been very successful. And then we did the Uganda Christmas shoes for 10 years. You guys remember that?
Yes.
And that's what led to what we're doing now, the Uganda Shoe Trees. But working now with this entrepreneurial educators in Uganda, trying to help break the cycle of poverty. Everything has changed now. Even if we had been able to get over to Uganda, and as of like the Monday before, like the 16th of March, we were still, travel was still open, and we thought maybe that might actually be a safer place to be, considering what was happening. But quickly after that, I think it was on the 18th and the 19th, they went ahead and shut down their borders. And as of the end of March, the 42 of the 54 African countries have multiple cases, and Uganda is not exempt from that. And so they've closed all of their borders to everything but cargo. And all the countries surrounding them, Ethiopia and the Sudan, the Congo, Kenya, that's doing the same thing. They're all in mandatory quarantines or shelter from home. Things like public transport, which David and Kylie have been to Uganda, so you know the importance. I mean, private motor cars are very uncommon there, so these taxis are shut down, so there's no taxis. The little bodas, which are the little 125cc motorcycles, which kind of wind their way through. If you really want to have a death wish, you should get on one of those someday. those are being restricted to a single passenger with their cargo, which you all think, oh, big deal, except that quite often you'll see 2 or 3 or a family of 6.
Or a couch.
Or a cow. Or a big sheet of windshield glass. Or,
everything goes on those.
You can see that I've seen a full-size bed.
Yep.
Of a boat going down the road. So that's restricted. And so what's happening is a lot of the Kampala residents, the main city residents, are moving what they call upcountry. So up where we're working, up in rural Uganda, hoping to get away from the infections that are a little bit more easily transmitted in the close conditions there in Kampala. So, and all the schools are shut down.
Yep.
So, and all non-essential businesses. So our cobblers aren't working. We have all of the shoes completed. They're sitting at the field office, but the schools are closed. So, it'll be a challenge when we get back because each pair of shoes is custom made for a child at an individual partner school. And we don't know how many of those students will be forced away from that area up country further in order to survive, and whether or not they'll come back when everything quote unquote returns to normal, which I'm not sure it'll ever. It's going to be a new normal, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
I need to explain what Uganda Shoe Trees is.
Yeah. Why don't you talk a little bit about Uganda Shoe Trees, particularly kind of the vision that's kind of come out of your MEI program, and what's going on with that?
Yeah, so one of the challenges, of course, in Uganda is that about 57% of the population is under the age of 18. It's the youngest nation per capita. It just passed India in terms of being the youngest nation per capita. And so you have this huge challenge of large amounts of young children in a poverty-stricken nation. And this cycle of poverty continues unless we can break that cycle. And we think the best way to do that, at least it's not just us, research shows the best way to break that cycle is education and the chance at an education. And so we partner with entrepreneurs, people who have decided they're going to open schools to go alongside the public schools, because the Ugandan public education system cannot handle the vast numbers of children. And so we work with those entrepreneurial educators in rural parts of the country that aren't connected with churches or synagogues or mosques or anything else. And we say, hey, how can we come along and help you? Fresh water systems, shoes for the kids, uniforms. We plant orchards with fruit trees to kind of go along with to supplement their lunch meal. Basically anything we can do to help these entrepreneurs who are trying to break that cycle of poverty. And we just feel like that's a generational impact instead of just an individual child. And that's all great. The individual child stuff we've done is awesome. But now we get to invest in something that's going to stay and move beyond just those kids as they continue to matriculate.
Did you want to say something about that? Okay. I was just going to say, I mean, that, and all of that is kind of is the sort of thing that really tugged at our heart and really made us want to become a part of what you're doing. And that's why we devote, so much of our show to Uganda Shoe Trees, and so much of our own advertising budget to get the word out, because it's such an important program, and we're honored to be the global ambassadors for it.
We are indeed.
Tell you how appreciative I am of everything you're doing for us. You help raise awareness of the project. You help raise money for the shoes. And hopefully we'll get to go in the fall like we had planned to go. And we'll have to, maybe.
A lot of our shows are being rescheduled to the fall. So that period, we need to talk about that offline, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Illusion. Like project yourself here in Uganda or something.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be good.
You haven't perfected that one yet?
It's just an illusion. So, we've talked a lot about, or people are talking a lot about how difficult this is, and how there's going to be a new normal, and, some of the downsides of having this pandemic take place. What do you, as a pastor, as a thought leader, as a communicator, what do you see are the possible potential benefits of all of us being in this?
That's a good question. I've actually put some thought into that, because as we're having some of our Zoom get-togethers in the evenings with our congregation members and family and friends, making a point of not just talking about, the new infections or the new scary parts and people losing work, and all of that's serious and obviously something that we're going to have to face, but trying to ask people, so what are some of the good things or a good thing that you're seeing that's coming out of it? And I think one of the things that we're seeing is that people feel like they're getting to know their neighbors, and here's one, their family members, even better than they used to. I mean, more shared meals together. If I look out my window at night in our little cul-de-sac, we see families walking with their dogs. And I mean, we never saw anything like past. And so there's more people getting out. I think that's certainly going to be something I hope will continue in the future. But I also think that we might in the future distribute ourselves less widely to try to be more present in our communities. There's so much support going on now. How do we support the local restaurants, the artists, musicians, all of those things in our communities? I think that new focus now, I'm really hoping that will continue to be more present in our regions. But I also think that the cooperation that's happening among nations might begin to undermine some of that nationalistic rhetoric that you've been seeing rise around the world about, hey, we don't need each other and we're going to kind of close ourselves out and close ourselves off from the world. And we're realizing that we're kind of all in this together. And these kinds of disasters, I think they tend to bring out both the best and the worst in humanity. And so I'm hoping and praying that this pandemic may foster and encourage a new level of altruism, and maybe some new altruistic heroes, people that we didn't know were going to step up in the midst of all of this and be new shining examples of what it's like to live in this new connected world that we're gonna emerge into it one day.
Wow, that's a great answer. I love that.
Very good.
All right, well now it's time for our lightning round, and we call it 5 questions.
I'm feeling pressure.
No pressure. It's the world's worst lightning round. There's no timer on it where you can go as long as you want. So, what is your favorite Bible verse?
Wow, that's a really hard question for me because I have verses for times in my life. It's kind of a thing for me is a ritualistic kind of a randomizing of my rituals. And so for right now, it seems like for these last 5 or 6 weeks or so, it's 2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 6 and 7, where Paul is reminding Timothy as he's challenging him as the leader of that church. He reminds him to stir up the gift of God, which is in him, that he received through the laying on of hands. And he reminds him that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. And I'm really drawing on that in the midst of this challenging time. So per se, favorite verse, but right now, this is the one I'm leaning into.
Gotcha. It's a good one. What are you binge watching right now?
Binge watching? Is that, explain that term to me?
Yeah. Oh, trust me, you know that term.
Oh, I do? Actually, I'm giving you a hard time. Yes. Believe it or not, I fell in love with a Netflix, it's a limited series called The English Game.
The English Game?
The English Game, and it is the story of the beginnings of the English Football League, the Premier League, which I'm a huge fan of the Premier League. Yes, Manchester United. Yeah. And it tells the story of the beginnings of the FA Cup. So in the UK, football, as it's known everywhere in the world except here, strangely, was something for the very rich, the aristocracy. And it tells the story of how the FA Cup was won for the first time by a labor class, a group of factory workers, and the professionalization of the football game.
Interesting.
Watch it.
Okay.
Are you missing sports right now?
I'm so busy.
Not really.
Things and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, when you hear the answer to my next question, probably you'll realize I do miss particularly one, but yeah.
All right, so let's talk about that. If you could have any other job than the one you have right now, what would it be?
As you guys know, for a long time, I've talked about I would love to be one day the chaplain of the PGA Tour champions. And you say, what in the world is that? Well, our denomination, the EPC, has the chaplaincy of the PGA Tour seniors. I guess you'd call it the senior circle. They call it the champions. It's the 50-plus crowd, and there is a position for chaplain. You just have to have a decent game of golf, a decent ability to play golf, and hold Bible studies, and be the chaplain for that group of men and their team. So I would love to do that one day, but we'll see. I'd have to get out and practice, and today's not looking real good.
No, it's
not
really
a good
not.
day for that. Working on that handicap.
Are you going to hit your favorite?
All right, so usually we're heading out to restaurants and going in and sitting down, but obviously we can't do that right now. So what is your favorite to-go order?
Okay, that's so easy. I'm going to see if you guys can guess, at least guess ethnicity. What am I going for if we're going to order out?
Thai.
Thai.
It has to be Thai.
Yep.
And the name, I think it was called Drunken Noodles. We love Drunken Noodles, which is that rice noodle, the thick fat, not rice noodles, which, and I like it Thai hot, so 5 hot.
Yes,
Yes,
you
you
do.
do.
Good answer. Good answer.
Make him sweat.
I know. Although he doesn't really need to. He is such an amazing cook. He
He's
doesn't
a
really
great
need to do
cook.
a whole lot of
I know.
takeout. What are you reading right now?
Well, that's interesting. I just so happen to
How
have
many?
So one of the things that I didn't say earlier on is I'm in the middle. I'm neck deep in a manuscript on a book I'm writing on innovation in the church, a handbook on innovation, which is rapidly changing, as you might imagine now. Writing is not what's being written at this point, but we're really talking about what does it look like to live in an authenticity culture. So I'm reading this book by Gilmore and Pine called What Consumers Really Want. It's called Authenticity. Ooh, it's kind of shiny there.
It is shiny. I like it.
So what we're looking for, millennials, what they're looking for is authenticity. So what does that mean to the church, and presenting how each church presents itself uniquely. And then for me personally, you guys know I'm really into the Enneagram. And so this is a brand new workbook I'm going through called Spiritual Rhythms for the Enneagram.
Oh, nice.
Emotional peace with healing prayers and things that go along with it. So currently, those are the 2 things that are on my desk. I've got a stack over there that I'll probably get to over the weekend, but that's what I'm reading right now.
And as a 3, I'm sure you're loving that.
I am.
Yes.
I have to get it done.
Get it done.
Hey, actually, real quick, can you explain for those who don't know what the Enneagram is?
So the Enneagram is an ancient spiritual tool that essentially helps identify the ways in which we think and act, some of which I think is part of our Imago Dei. It's divided into 9 different spheres, and each one of them represents a part of who God is and the part of the Imago Dei that we represent. And it's just a tool that we can use to talk about, hey, what are the things that I do naturally, and why do I respond and think the way that I do? And then what are some of the things that I do naturally when I'm under stress, and how do I overcome those things? And so if you've not done that kind of work, I think it's great, deep shadow work that we all need to do in our spiritual lives. So we brought the table through it about a year ago, and I would argue that's been likely one of the most transformative things we've ever done as a community together, to begin to understand who we are and why we respond the way that we do.
Yeah, I would certainly say it's probably one of the most interactive things we've done too. Like it was interesting to me, even here we are a year later, and you still see people refer themselves as whatever the number was, and kind of talk about how they're dealing with things in that number.
Mm-hmm.
So
it is interesting.
Powerful stuff.
Dan says best Thai. And then Clark is saying, can we order some takeout from your kitchen, David?
I start doing that, don't I? Oh gosh, I miss cooking for the table.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me what's the biggest change that's happening in your community, and I said I don't get to do a meal together with my church family like we've been. It's been several weeks now. So
yeah, and actually, real quick, talk about that too, because the table even before the place we're in right now was a little different. So explain what the table is and how we do things. Yeah,
so a few years ago, we arranged ourselves as a community into groups of 20 to 24 people. and we gather together. The idea being throughout the week, different nights throughout the week and weekend, around a shared meal. And so we have a shared meal together. There's a time of, there's some liturgy involved. There's a time of musical worship, usually acoustic, around the table. And then we engage scripture together around the table. I kind of lead a discussion. I don't preach per se. I just kind of, I'm a holy instigator. And everybody we dig into the text together. And so for us, the transition to the Zoom style of that has been pretty seamless, other than the meal and the musical worship time together.
Have you had people say, hey, when are you going to deliver my meal so I can be ready for the table Zoom?
I have a couple of delivery I'll be making today, because we'll be doing communion for a couple people who couldn't get out. But yeah, I have had a couple people asking.
That's
nice.
Awesome. Well, Pastor Dave, thank you so much for coming on. It's always a joy when we get to chat with you, and I love introducing you to our friends out in the world.
Yes.
So I know you've got a lot going on. And you've got an early morning phone call.
Yeah, I've got an interview in Uganda, live on Uganda television, about the effects of the pandemic on NGOs and 501c3 charities around the world. So that's 3 a.m. in the morning. So I'll probably in some of this by then as well. So they can, if you want to find out more information about what we're doing in Uganda, it's just shoetrees.com.
UgandaShoeTrees.com.
And we'll put a link to that up in the comments as well.
Yep.
Cool. I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye. Such a blast. I love talking to him.
I know.
And sometimes you can wind him up and just let him go, which is always
doesn't
good.
take much.
No,
it's great.
No, but it's always good stuff. Like, it's never,
yeah.
So I really appreciate that. And well, guys, we appreciate you hanging out with us for guest week.
Yeah.
On Coffee Chat. It's been a blast.
So good.
Yeah. We are going to take the next week down a little bit. We'll be back next Friday.
Really?
Yes.
That's Good Friday.
It is Good Friday.
Oh.
Wow. And we have a good guest.
Uh-huh.
So we'll be talking about him. Ryan Fontenot will be our guest next week. We're excited about having him with us. Any other final thoughts?
I think that's about all I got.
That is about all you've got.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, wash your hands, stay safe, love one another, and we will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.